Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are here for another RAW Recap, which took place on May 26, 2025, in Tampa, Florida. As mentioned on the Battlegrounds reactions video, KP is out on vacation for the week, so for now, you just get The Push with Nick. So, without further ado, let's get into this absolutely packed episode of Monday Night Raw and get into what happened and kind of my thoughts on what went down. We kick things off with Seth Rollins, accompanied by Paul Heyman, also joined by Braun Breaker and the newly acquired Bronson Reed. The promo is basically just Paul breaking down the team and telling us what to expect. I think this was kind of needed due to the fact that Bronson Reed, took out Seth for as long as he did, not that long ago. So Heyman kind of breaks down what to expect from the team going forward. Obviously, we didn't need much on Breaker. Kind of already know what we got with him. The badass, the dog, giving us basically what we've been seeing, albeit maybe a tamed version of it. But we can get into that as the weeks come forward. Then he goes in to talk about Bronson Reed. He basically breaks down Bronson Reed and that Bronson Reed did what Seth did to Seth, what neither Roman or CM Punk could do. And he did that in one night. So, of course, Paul Heyman is incredible at what he does. He is, I think, just in case his faction didn't have everything they needed to make this work, Paul Heyman puts them over just a little bit more. And he's great at what he does. And I think this is exactly what this faction needed to kind of show everyone that we're on the same page. So Seth also weighs in and basically says that this team is the future. And speaking of future, Seth tells us that he's going to qualify for Money in the Bank tonight and then take the title. And he kind of sold Money in the Bank briefcase being higher than that of the title. So interesting take there, but regardless, we move forward. And speaking of Money in the Bank, we get into our first qualifier of the night. This would be the third of the six men's side qualifiers for Money in the Bank. And this is Chad Gable's worst nightmare. He gets to qualify for Money in the Bank, but only if he defeats not one, but two luchadors. So this match was pretty fast-paced, full of spots, as you would expect with three men in the ring. During the match, Chad gets a cheap shot on Vikingo. That'll come back to bite him. Later in the match is kind of the turning point. He comes back to get his revenge on Chad Gable and gives Chad Gable a taste of his boot, and that knocks him off. Throws Dragon Lee back in the ring. Dragon Lee has the opportunity to take the match, and it looks like he's going to until Penta comes in out of nowhere, swoops in, and gets the 3 count. So Penta is our third qualifier. He joins Solo Sikoa and LA Knight. So 3 of our 6 right there, and congrats to Penta who definitely earned that one. That was a thrilling contest to start the night, and just like that, we have 3 of our 6. We're halfway there. Before the next match, we see a backstage segment with Roxy. Roxy's coming to bring more nuggies to Dom. She notices that his shoulder looks a little tight and starts to rub it. While this is going on, we hear a voice in the background, not knowing who it is quite yet. It ends up being Liv Morgan making her return, and obviously less than pleased to see Roxanne's hands on Dom. More on that to come later, but Liv had to first talk to Adam Pearce. She announces that she already knew what was going on. Raquel had been filling her in on everything, but she'd deal with that later. She had to go talk to Adam Pearce to get her opportunity to qualify for Money in the Bank. So it's like those tag titles on their shoulders don't exist, except for when they're being introduced for in-ring action. And speaking of in-ring action, we get on to the next contest of the night, which features Rusev taking on Akira Tozawa. Kind of introduced this match next week. Akira volunteered himself as tribute, if you want to say. He gets in maybe a move or two at most, and then Rusev takes him out with the Machka kick and locks in the Accolade. Not really much else to say on that one. What I will say is after the match, we have Sheamus come to the ring, and he gets involved. Excuse me while I wipe the drool from my chin here. Seeing these two guys in the ring once again. We see them kind of go head to head, and Rusev basically just walks away after that, going face to face with Sheamus. Something wasn't right for him, so he kind of walks out of the ring. It's a shame these guys aren't on the same page, or at least it doesn't appear that they are, because this would be a great addition to the Raw Tag Division. Um, Ignore me while I try to fantasy book one of the worst tag divisions in WWE. And speaking of, our next match, we get the Creed Brothers of American Made versus the War Raiders versus New Day. Now, don't confuse my previous comment with a slight to these men in the ring. These are all great tag teams. Unfortunately, the booking of the Raw tag team division is just absolutely atrocious. But I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. This one essentially starts off as a handicap match. Creed Brothers and the New Day kind of handing out punishment to the War Raiders, and a questionable decision because every time we see this happen in the ring, we know eventually it's going to come to an end. So wait just a few more minutes, and exactly that happens. The New Day, who had been had the Creed Brothers thinking that they were on the same page, are no longer, and this match was starting to get pretty good actually, and until it wasn't. Xavier gets a kind of random roll up, and that ends up being the win. Very anticlimactic finish here. But remember earlier when I said I'd love to see Rusev and Sheamus in the tag division. I think they could absolutely help that division. I stand by that. See this match kind of for support. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that is the Raw tag division as it stands. And yeah, meanwhile the SmackDown division is thriving. Before we go on to our next match, we have a promo with Jey Uso, who makes his way down to the ring. And before he can really get out much of anything, Gunther joins him once again. He comes into the ring, congratulates Jey, kind of similar to the Logan Paul promo we saw last week. Boosts his confidence up and then kind of tears him down. Essentially, he congratulates him for still holding on to the title, congratulates him for the victory over Logan, and then goes on to say, you have great qualities in a human being, but those qualities are not great for a champion. So he then goes on to say in 2 weeks he'll be taking that title back. Jey having had enough of what Gunther was doing, he basically says, I do this for my family, my friends, and the support of WWE Universe. So yeah, really nothing too special here. I think it does a good job of reminding us what's coming. Still 2 weeks out from that for whatever reason, not in Money in the Bank. I don't know if we'll figure that out now or if we ever will. But yeah, so the Monday after Money in the Bank, we'll get this match finally. And yeah, nothing too groundbreaking. I feel like we've seen this promo a couple times before. But, as long as their build was before WrestleMania and getting this feud again, obviously you're bound to have some repeats there. So with that, we get into our next match, which is Liv Morgan and Kairi Sane. We set this match up earlier in the night as Liv walks by Kairi and Io, who were seen in the hallway. And Liv is talking about how she's going to go to Adam Pearce to get that Money in the Bank qualifying match that she mentioned backstage segment we saw earlier. And then she's going to take Io's title. Kairi says she can meet her in the ring after Liv tells her that that's something she cannot do because she lost last week to Rhea. This is a pretty good back and forth and got a lot more time than I thought it would have, honestly. And Kairi gets the win, thank goodness, after the shenanigans that took place in her match last week and having taken the pin from Rhea. Yeah, definitely needed there. Kairi eating 2 losses when she gets back would not be a good look. But that being said, obviously this involves a member of the Judgment Day, so it doesn't come without its shenanigans. As Raquel is seen up on the ropes, kind of closing out the match to cause a distraction, Roxy is actually in on the other side. At this time, Kairi's up on the top rope. Roxanne pushes Kairi off, And then Raquel sees Roxy. She runs over there and they're arguing. Liv is then distracted by Roxy and Raquel arguing. And before, she's over that, I guess, then she goes over to Kyrie to hit an Oblivion. Kyrie reverses the Oblivion and gets a roll up pin to defeat Liv Morgan. So clearly a distraction there. Go figure. Distraction and the Judgment Day go hand in hand. But yeah, clearly more to come on this. Judgment Day featured very predominantly throughout the evening. And believe it or not, this is not the last development we see from the Judgment Day. But clearly on the women's side of the Judgment Day, we have lots of issues. And be interesting to see how those unfold. We then go into the next segment, which features Lyra Valkyria making her way down to the ring. Essentially, this is, Lyra is frustrated that Becky has weaseled her way into yet another title shot. But that's just kind of how she does. Lyra announces that because of her attack on her husband, it's now personal. Becky comes out just kind of flabbergasted at the whole situation and says that she's annoyed that she's being called out for making it personal when Lyra did that in the first place. Yeah. Becky then goes on basically to say if she can't beat her this time, that she won't get another shot at the IC title ever again. So unfortunately, most of us can probably read between the lines here because of that stipulation. Whether you like that or not, unfortunately, I think that's where we are headed. Nothing too groundbreaking, I think, overall for this segment. Kind of similar to Jay Gunther. This one's a little different. At least brought something meaningful to the feud and the stipulation there. I think Becky's retort was, "If I win, you have to hold my hand up." And then Lyra basically comes back and says, "I had no problem with holding up someone's hand that's better than me, but unfortunately, that's never been you." So this one was definitely better than the Jay Gunther one, but still kind of along the same lines of we've kind of seen this before. We then get into the main event, and my goodness, what a main event it was. This was the fourth Money in the Bank qualifier on the men's side. And while I do feel like I kind of say this too often, but with these three men in the ring, was there ever any doubt? I mean, fighting with myself with this match because all three men are deserving here for everything Seth has done for the company and is absolutely killing it on every level at the moment. He deserves that Money in the Bank briefcase and the title. Sammy, the ultimate underdog, and as Cross alluded to in a segment shortly before the match, he's yet to win the big title on the main roster and obviously very deserving as well. And let us not forget about Finn. The amount of time he's been without a top title in WWE is absolutely criminal. I think we can all agree to that. Getting into the match itself, the near fall of the Blue Thunderbomb received quite the pop. And speaking of Sammy getting a big pop, he then gets a haluva kick shortly after and on Seth, and the crowd really popped for that one. I think in true finisher fashion, the crowd kind of thought that that was going to be the end. But this is when things get truly chaotic, perhaps a bit overbooked. But Bronson and Braun get involved to save Seth Rollins from getting beat. Shortly after, Jay comes out, who attempts to help as well. Then Don comes out. He throws a chair over to Fenn, or at least attempts to, or at least appears to attempt to. But it was anything but a good toss. Wasn't anywhere close to Fenn, really. Fenn has to crawl over to the chair, and as he's on his way over there, he eats a stomp from Rollins onto the chair, and just like that, Seth Rollins is your fourth Money in the Bank qualifier. So while I think in just general Money in the Bank fashion, I think Seth is probably the least deserving, at least, and I don't want to say least deserving, makes the least amount of sense in terms of what the Money in the Bank briefcase is supposed to do. I think the other two guys made more sense and needed that more. But that being said, it's Seth Rollins in the angle he's currently in, being on the top of the Raw division. I think that makes sense too. So, it's quite clear that Seth does deserve this win as well. But even better, Everything else kind of ties out, continues to play into the storyline. And now we get the Judgment Day issues on the men's side, which that entire faction after this evening is an absolute shambles. And then on the sidelines after the match, we have Bronson and Braun taking orders from Rollins, telling him to kind of finish everything off after Punk then arrives. And they go up to Braun and Bronson go up to the ring or the Jumbotron to kind of look for him towards the entrance. And Punk comes in from the other side, takes out Rollins, and then runs into the crowd when Braun and Bronson are headed back to the ring. So, a definition of an overbooked main event. My goodness, this was a ton of fun, and everything made sense. Everything had a reason, and it made sense why they were involved, and made sense what they were doing. But yeah, remembering my fantasy booking for the Raw Tag Division, can we just take a second and appreciate what an absolute force Bronson and Braun would be in that division as well? I don't know if that's what they're going to do with them, but I think kind of that faction, which, we've yet to receive a name, I think putting them in that faction as well, putting some gold in there, I think that would obviously help the faction. And I think putting a team as dominant as they are going to be would obviously help the Raw Tag Division as well. I can't think of another team that would be as helpful as they would. So yeah, Monday Night Raw, much like kind of overall, much like the last episode of Friday Night SmackDown, which I thought was best episode in a while, possibly even since Mania, definitely up there if not. This episode kind of picks up right where SmackDown left off. So overall, I give Raw a 9.5 out of 10. I thought it was incredible. So outside of a few nitpicks and promos, it didn't add too much. Specifically the Jay Gunther one. We were treated to some really good wrestling tonight. So here's to hoping that NXT can continue that momentum tonight with an episode starting off of Ethan Page and Ricky Saints for the North American titles. So my hopes are pretty high. We also get another Vicaire defense as well. So with that, this has been the Raw Recap for May 26, 2025 edition. And we will be back soon with our NXT recap coming at you tomorrow. So if you like what we're putting out here, please let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Until next time, take care.